church, then a mosque, and finally a church again.
What the hell? Oh my goodness.
Of John the Baptist.
The destruction of Rome's pagan temples.
This is the so-called Temple of Concordia at Agrigento, Sicily.
Thought I would do a reaction to this. This is pretty interesting. You know, I haven't really done anything on like paganism. Like, I really haven't done anything on like pagan religions much. Like Zoroastrian, but like not Eurocentric pagan religion. So I'm like, yeah, why not?
Along with the Hephaestion in Athens, it's one of the best preserved Greek temples anywhere in the world. Little but the roof is missing. The building owes its excellent state of preservation to the fact that it became a church in late antiquity and was carefully maintained. Few other pagan sanctuaries were so fortunate.
When Constantine converted to Christianity, there were, by one count, 424 temples in the city of Rome. Tens of thousands more were scattered across the provinces. They soared heavenward, like the temple of Jupiter at Baalbek. They crouched beneath the earth, like the oracle of the dead at Ephora. They housed flocks of doves and sacred fish, mammoth tusks and meteorites, shapeless idols of age-black wood, and chryselephantine statues with glowing eyes. They were the most spectacular, most expensive, most famous buildings in the known world. And, within 2 centuries of Constantine's reign, virtually every one was abandoned or destroyed. Some temples were attacked by Christians. Martin of Tours burned shrines and felled sacred groves in the Gallic countryside. On the other side of the empire, Bishop Porphyrius of Gaza demolished the temple of Zeus Marnus. The Egyptian abbot Shenut,
I ain't gonna lie, bro. I think some of these gods are real.
led squads of monks against pagan sanctuaries and images. The violence came to a crescendo during the reign of Theodosius I, when a Christian mob sacked the Serapeum of Alexandria, and the orator Libanius begged for an end to the rampant destruction of pagan shrines around Antioch.
Interesting. So, the way how I thought about Christianity spreading around Europe at first, I originally thought that like Christianity colonized Europe, really and truly. I mean, well, depending on how you look at it, yes and no. Yes and no. Christianity isn't a European religion. It's funny though, whenever I hear like Europeans talk about freaking Europe, preserve Europe, blah blah blah, and it's like they go and practice Christianity. No, I'm not saying like, hey guys, go worship freaking false gods, but it's like so many parts of actual like European stuff is kind of just gone when you like really enjoy think about it, because paganism was like a big thing back in Europe. A lot of countries don't really like keep their pagan traditions around. I mean, we have Christmas, you know. Christmas is pagan, has pagan origins to it, but aside from like Christmas, most of these European countries, they don't, or maybe I'm just being ignorant, and I just don't know, but based on what I've seen, they don't really keep or retain much of anything from like their old pagan tradition, really and truly. Like Eastern Europe, like Eastern Slavic countries, they have that freaking necklace that you see me wearing. I'm not gonna try to pronounce the damn name of it, but they have that necklace that you see me try to you see me wearing my videos. That's a pagan thing. I think like Eastern Slavic countries are like, well, like, yeah, compared to the rest of Europe, they're like the only ones that kind of like keep their low key, kind of, sort of, not really so, but kind of, sort of, a little bit more keep their pagan heritage, not kind of, sort of.
The vast majority of Roman temples, however, were not destroyed violently. The imperial government discouraged indiscriminate destruction. Even after public worship of the old gods was prohibited, temples remained public monuments. A series of decrees stipulated that they were to remain open and forbade their demolition for building material. The upper classes, including Christians, were generally sympathetic. A bishop of Ilion gave Julian a tour of his city's temples. Christian ire tended to focus less on temple buildings than on the cult images they contained. Pope Gregory I, writing centuries later, would urge missionaries in Anglo-Saxon England to preserve shrines, but destroy their idols. At Ephesus, for example, statues of the deified Augustus and Livia were mutilated and had crosses cut into their foreheads. Nearby, a wealthy citizen named Demeas set up an inscription commemorating his replacement of a likeness of Artemis with a cross. The most famous statues of the gods, however, were respected as works of art. Phidias's Olympian Zeus was moved intact to Constantinople. So was the colossal bronze image of Athena Promachus, which had stood beside the Parthenon. The goddess would guard the form of Constantine until the time of the Fourth Crusade. We'll discuss the...
Wait, it got destroyed in the Fourth Crusade. Bro, how the hell? Why would you destroy that for? Bro, imagine if we still had that today. Bro, that would be sick, bro.
The fate of Rome's temples after a brief word about this video's sponsor. Whenever I...
Sponsor, wait.
Step in Portal, some of Rome's greatest monuments come to life. And with Portal, rituals were maintained for decades after being closed for worship. In most cases, they were finally ruined by some combination of earthquakes and pillaging. As early as the mid-4th century, only a generation after Constantine, Libanius complained that the citizens of Antioch were stripping stone from temples for reuse in their homes. Eventually, the emperors condoned the practice. It was rumored that Justinian built columns from the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus into Hagia Sophia.
Oh, wow. Oh, I mean, this reminds me of when I reacted to freaking ancient Egypt in the Quran and the freaking Salahuddin, bro. Freaking Salahuddin destroyed some pyramids for building material. Bruh. At least the freaking Romans tried to preserve. At least they saw like the value of preserving stuff like this. Freaking hell, man.
Only a small minority of temples were converted into churches. This was partly a matter of incompatibility. A church is a congregational building where people gather to worship. Temples, designed to shelter only the statue and possessions of a god, were not, and tended to be too dark and cramped for Christian services.
Okay, that would explain. Okay.
Is the widespread belief that temples were...
Fun fact, right? You see this? You see that trident right there? You see that trident? Yeah. That is actually the same trident on my country's flag. Yeah. Now, okay, it's like two tridents, okay? Because the trident, the broken trident officially, as it's called, on Barbados's flag, which is obviously, you know, my country right there. Like, it's Britannia's trident, like, broken to represent the fact that we broke away from England and we became our own freaking country. However, the trident also represents who the hell was the god of water? I think it was like Neptune or some shit like that, like god of water. But basically, it's also supposed to like represent the freaking I think it's also supposed to represent the fact like how important water is for Barbados. Because the island is surrounded obviously by water mostly. It's surrounded by water, and it's a big importance to the island, especially in its economy. Like guys, Barbados has, just fun fact, Barbados has like one of the largest like EEZ ratios or some shit like that in the world. Like all I know is like the EEZ of Barbados, basically like the economic waters of the country, it's like 436 times bigger than the actual freaking country. And the government really just has not been like doing anything. There's already like freaking proof, big evidence that there's a bunch of like natural gas and like oil in our EEZ, and that's just like one small part, guys. Like if you want to, you could just Google Barbados's EEZ. You can see how big it is, and yeah, there's a bunch of like more rumors that there's a bunch of like minerals and underwater resources that probably is just ripe for the taking, right? So yeah, the ocean is a big part of Barbados's success, because Barbados does have a reputation of being a very wealthy country. So, but yeah, I just want to point that out there, that trident. Like, if you ever see that trident, and I don't know, your gods, and you see that flag, and you notice that trident looks oddly similar, it's not a coincidence.
Wanted. Christians assumed that the pagan gods were malevolent demons sent by Satan to mislead mankind. These beings lurked in the strongholds of the old religion, waiting to tempt or possess the unwary. To be rid of them, a temple had to be thoroughly purified, ideally by a resident holy man. In most Roman cities, the first monumental churches were built on the outskirts, often near a martyr's tomb. It was only later, from the mid-4th century, that they began to appear in city centers, and the first temples were converted. In Rome, no temple seems to have become a church before the Pantheon, consecrated in 609. The Pantheon, with its huge open rotunda, needed few architectural modifications. Most converted temples, however, were more like the Parthenon, which was substantially altered when it became a church around the end of the 5th century. An entrance was punched through what had been the back wall, an apse was built into the former pronaos, and the mythological sculptures were systematically defaced. In the massive temple of Apollo at Didyma, a church was simply inserted into the cella, which had been left open to the sky. A basilica, likewise, rose in what had been the second court of Ramses III's mortuary temple. The most common method of converting a temple into a church, however, was to fill the spaces between the colonnades and partially or wholly dismantle the cella within, creating a three-aisled basilica. The best preserved Greek temples, the Temple of Hephaestus at Athens and the Temple of Concordia at Agrigento, were both remodeled in this way. Other temples underwent more radical adaptations. In Rome, the medieval church of San Nicola in Carcere was built over 3 adjoining temples. The central temple became the nave. The outer walls engulfed the colonnades of the temples on either side. A circular shrine of Isis is embedded in the 7 chapels that make up Bologna's Basilica of Santo Stefano. The Temple of Aphrodite at Aphrodisias was almost completely disassembled. Only the lateral colonnades were left in place and lengthened with stone from the facades to form the nave of a new cathedral. A few buildings underwent the double conversion from temple to church to mosque. The Duomo of Syracuse,
Double conversion,
initially
damn.
a temple of Athena, became a church, then a mosque, and finally a church again.
What the hell? Oh my goodness.
Of John the Baptist that had been built into a Roman temple of Zeus. At the Parthenon, the call to prayer was heard for centuries over the Christian frescoes clinging, ever more precariously, to the walls of Athena's temple. To learn more about temples, churches, and the broader
Freaking, you know what I was like thinking about? Like, what if like how did Muslims like treat like pagan? Didn't like Muslims kind of like just kind of like tore down like anything that was like just anything pagan? I'm pretty sure if I remember from my early Muslim expansion, I'm kind of curious. I'd like to see more details on like how like the Muslims, when they started to convert to Islam, treated like temples. My brain just died there, brain fart. But if you got any other interesting videos like this, usually most of the videos on my channels are suggestions. Okay, this is one of the rare times where it's not a suggestion. But if you have any like interesting videos like this, you can comment it in the comments below. Eventually I will do it. Okay, eventually I'll do it. You know, like the video. All right, like the video, man. You know, subscribe if you're new, especially if you like my reactions. You made it all the way here, man. Go do all that. Go check out my other videos like this on my channel. I have plenty at this point. Thank you for watching, and goodbye, man.